Clara Whitmore's hands were steady when she loaded the dynamite at dawn. They were steady when she lit the fuse and ran. They were steady even when the explosion came early and the tunnel collapsed with a sound like God's judgment. But they weren't steady now. Now, as she knelt in the dust beside a dying man, his two children screaming for their papa, her hands shook like leaves in a storm. Because saving him meant breaking every rule she'd lived by for 3 years, and breaking those rules might destroy her, or save her. Before we begin, subscribe and follow this story to the end. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far our story travels. Copper Creek, Colorado Territory, September 1882. The mountain didn't care about Clara's promises to dead men. It only cared if you had the courage to go back down after it tried to kill you. Clara stood at the mine entrance in the pre-dawn dark dynamite in one hand, fuse cutter in the other. 3 years she'd been working this claim alone. 3 years since Thomas died, trying to prove there was silver in these rocks. 3 years of the town calling her crazy, stubborn, unnatural. Let them talk. She'd found traces yesterday. Real traces. Today might be the day everything changed. She descended 60 feet, placed the charges exactly where the geology said the vein should run, lit the fuse, and climbed back up fast. 45 seconds. That's how long she had. She made it to the surface with 15 seconds to spare. The explosion came like thunder trapped underground. The earth shook. Dust billowed from the shaft. Clara counted to 30, waiting for the air to clear. That's when she heard the screaming. A child's voice, high and terrified. "Papa! Papa, wake up!" Clara's blood went cold. Someone was down there. In her mine. Right where she'd just set off. She didn't think. She grabbed a rope, tied it off, and descended into hell. The dust was still thick, choking. Her lantern barely cut through it. But she could hear them now. 2 children, maybe 3, and a man's voice, weak and confused. "Jake, take Lily and run. Get out, now." "I can't leave you, Papa." Clara followed the voices, found them in a side chamber she'd never explored. The explosion had brought down a support beam. A man lay pinned beneath it, blood spreading dark across his shirt. 2 children huddled beside him, the boy, maybe 10, trying desperately to lift the timber, the little girl sobbing. "Get back!" Clara barked. 3 heads whipped toward her. The man's eyes went wide. "Who?" "Doesn't matter. Boy, when I lift this beam, you pull him out. Fast, understand?" The boy nodded, his face white with shock. Clara planted her feet, grabbed the timber, and heaved. Pain exploded through her shoulders. The beam shifted 3 inches. 4. "Now!" The boy grabbed his father under the arms and pulled. The man screamed. Clara's vision blurred. Her back felt like it was tearing in half. Again. 1 more pull. The man came free. Clara dropped the beam and fell to her knees, gasping. The little girl was sobbing hysterically. The boy had his father's head in his lap, pressing his hands to the wound. Blood poured between his fingers. Clara crawled over. "Move!" She ripped her own shirt, the good one she'd saved for town, and wadded it against the wound. The man's eyes fluttered open. They were dark brown like creek stones after rain. "My children," he whispered, "are alive. Don't talk. You're Clara Whitmore. And you're bleeding in my mine without permission. We can discuss manners later." The boy spoke up, his voice shaking. "I'm Jake McKenna. This is my sister Lily. That's our pa Daniel. We didn't mean to trespass. We were just—" "Hush, I need to think." Clara assessed the wound. Deep, but the beam hadn't crushed anything vital. He'd live, if she got him help fast. "Jake, how old are you?" 10, ma'am." "Good age. You know where Doc Walsh lives?" "Yes, ma'am." "Run, fast as you can. Tell him Clara needs him at her cabin. Don't stop for anyone. Can you do that?" Jake looked at his father, then his sister. Fear and responsibility warred in his young face. "Lily stays with me," Clara said softer now. "I promise I'll keep her safe. But your pa needs that doctor. You're the only one who can get him." Something in Clara's voice made the boy believe her. He ran. Clara turned to Lily. The child was maybe 6, her face streaked with tears and dust. "Come here, honey." Lily didn't move, just stared at her father and all that blood. "Lily." Clara made her voice gentle but firm. "I need your help. Can you be brave for your papa?" The little girl hiccuped, nodded. "Good girl. I need you to hold this cloth right here, just like this. Press down hard. You understand?" Lily's small hands replaced Clara's. They were shaking, but they held steady. "That's perfect. You're keeping him alive right now. You're saving your papa." Daniel's eyes found Clara's again. "Thank you. Save it. You're not dead yet. What were we doing down here?" He tried to sit up, gasped, fell back. "God, that hurts." "That's the broken ribs talking. And you were trespassing is what you were doing. Sun's barely up." "I wasn't." He stopped, looked away. "You weren't what?" "Looking for work." The words came out bitter, ashamed. "I'm the new blacksmith. Moved here 2 months back with the kids. My wife passed 2 years ago. Consumption. Been trying to make it work, but blacksmith work doesn't pay enough to feed 2 children and keep a roof over your heads." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I heard you might need help. Heard you've been working this mine alone since your husband died. Thought maybe we could help each other. Thought maybe the desperate widow would hire cheap labor. Thought maybe 2 desperate people could find a solution that worked for both of them." Clara studied him. His face was weathered with work and grief, but his eyes were honest, direct. No pity in them, which was more than she could say for most men in this town. "How'd you know I blast at dawn?" "I didn't. I've been watching the mine for 2 weeks trying to figure out when to approach you. Everyone said you don't talk to anyone, don't hire anyone. So I thought I'd just show up, offer to work, prove I was serious. By sneaking into my mine. By being here when you needed someone." The logic was twisted, but Clara couldn't argue with it. If he hadn't been here, if that beam had fallen while she was deeper in the tunnel, she'd be dead right now. Footsteps pounded in the tunnel. Jake burst back and Doc Walsh right behind him. "Clara." The doctor was 60, silver-haired, with hands that never shook. He took one look at the situation and nodded. "Good work, both of you." He knelt, began his examination. Clara stood, stepped back. Her legs were trembling now that the crisis was past. Lily appeared beside her, slipped her hand into Clara's. "Is Papa going to die?" Clara's throat closed. She'd held 3 babies that never breathed, buried them on the hill behind the cabin. Sworn she'd never let herself feel that kind of love again, never risk that kind of loss. But this child's hand in hers felt like a promise she didn't know she needed to make. "Not if Doc Walsh has anything to say about it. Your papa's strong, and you were very brave. You told me to be. You listened. That's the hard part." Doc Walsh finished his examination. "Broken ribs, lost a lot of blood. But nothing vital hit. He'll live. Clara, I need to move him. Can I use your wagon?" "It's outside." They made a strange procession through the September morning. Clara drove while Doc Walsh rode in the back with Daniel. Jake sat rigid beside Clara and Lily refused to leave her father's side. The town was waking up. Shopkeepers swept boardwalks, women hung wash, and every single person stopped to stare. Clara Whitmore, the widow who wouldn't speak to anyone, driving a bleeding man through town, a man with children, a widower. The whispers started before they even reached Doc's office. "Ain't proper. Shameless. Poor man barely knows her and she's already got her hooks in him." Clara's jaw tightened, but she kept driving. She'd stopped living for their approval 3 years ago. They got Daniel inside and onto Doc's examination table. Doc shooed everyone to the waiting room. Clara found herself with 2 children who looked at her like she was something between a stranger and a savior. She'd never known what to do with children. Hadn't known what to do with her own babies when they came out silent and blue. "You hungry?" The words surprised her. Jake nodded. Lily just stared. There's a cafe next door. Come on. The cafe went dead silent when they walked in. Every head turned. Clara knew these people, had grown up with most of them. But after Thomas died, after she'd refused to sell the mine and remarry like a proper widow, they'd stopped seeing her as one of them. She was an aberration now, a woman who didn't know her place. Clara walked straight to a corner table and sat. Jake and Lily slid in across from her. Martha Brennan approached slowly. She was round and kind-faced, but her eyes had been cold to Clara for 2 years. Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Brennan. 3 breakfast plates. Coffee for me, milk for the children. I heard there was an accident at your mine. News travels fast. Is it true you saved Daniel McKenna's life? I pulled a man out from under a beam, that's all. That's not all. Jake's voice was fierce protective. She was so strong. She lifted the whole thing by herself. And she didn't treat me like a baby. She trusted me to help. Something flickered in Martha's expression. Not quite approval, but close. Well, that's something. She brought the food. Clara watched the children eat like they hadn't seen a meal in days. Maybe they hadn't. When's the last time you had breakfast? Clara asked quietly. Jake looked down. Day before yesterday. Papa's been saving money for winter supplies. What about school? Can't afford it. Miss Hart wants $2 a month for both of us. Clara's hands tightened around her coffee cup. She knew that struggle, knew what it was like to choose between food and everything else. Eat, she said. Then we'll check on your father. They were halfway through their meal when the cafe door opened and Samuel Blackwood walked in. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Blackwood owned Copper Creek Mining Company. He was 55, silver-haired, dressed like a man who'd never touched a pickaxe in his life. He'd been trying to buy Clara's mine for 3 years. She'd refused every offer. He spotted her immediately, walked over without invitation. Mrs. Whitmore, I heard about the accident. His voice was smooth as butter. I'm glad you're unharmed. Mr. Blackwood, I also heard your tunnel collapsed. That's the 3rd cave-in this year. Minor incident. Minor? His eyebrows rose. A man nearly died. But didn't. This time. Blackwood pulled out a chair, sat. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to speak plainly. Your mine is dangerous. You don't have the manpower, the equipment, or frankly, the expertise to keep it safe. Someone's going to die down there, and when they do, you'll be responsible. Clara's hands curled into fists under the table. The mine is fine. The mine is a death trap run by a stubborn woman who refuses to admit she needs help. His tone turned hard. Sell it to me, Clara. I'll give you twice what I offered last time. You can go back east live comfortably. Leave the mining to men who know what they're doing. Jake's fork clattered to his plate. Lily's eyes went wide. Clara stood slowly. We're done here. Are we? Because from where I'm sitting, you just nearly killed a man and orphaned his children. How much blood do you need on your hands before you admit you can't do this alone? Jake, Lily, let's go. Think about my offer, Blackwood called after them. Because next time I might not be so generous. They walked back to Doc's office in silence. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. Blackwood was right about one thing: the mine was dangerous. She'd been taking risks she shouldn't take, pushing herself beyond safe limits. But it was all she had. Thomas had died believing that mine would make them rich. Abandoning it would make his death meaningless. Doc Walsh met them at the door. He'll be fine. Needs rest. 2 weeks minimum. Can we see him? Jake asked. Course, son. Daniel was sitting up in bed, his torso wrapped in bandages. When Lily ran to him, he hugged her with his good arm, his face tight with pain, but full of love. Hey, Lily girl, I'm okay. You promised you wouldn't get hurt. I know. I'm sorry. Clara stood in the doorway, suddenly unsure. She'd done her part, saved them. Now she should leave, go back to her solitary life, forget this ever happened. Mrs. Whitmore, Daniel's voice stopped her. "Could I speak with you, alone?" Doc Walsh ushered the children out. Clara approached the bed slowly. "Thank you," Daniel said quietly. "For my life. For my children. For everything." "You already thanked me." "I know, but I mean it. I owe you." "You owe me nothing." "Then let me work for you. When I heal, let me help with the mine. I'm strong. I learned fast and I need the work. Please." Clara looked at him, really looked, saw the desperation in his eyes, the pride that was killing him to ask for help, the love for his children that made him willing to beg. She saw herself reflected back. "Where are you staying?" "Room above the smithy. It's small, but who's looking after you while you heal?" "The kids can manage. A 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. For 2 weeks. Daniel's face hardened. "We've managed worse." Clara made a decision that terrified her. "Come stay at my cabin." "What?" "You heard me. I've got a spare room. The children can have the loft. You stay until you heal. Then you work for me. Standard wages, room and board included." "Mrs. Whitmore, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity. It's a business arrangement that benefits both of us. You need a place to recover. I need workers. This solves both problems." "The town will crucify you for this." "The town's been talking about me for 3 years. What's a little more gossip?" "It'll hurt your reputation." "My reputation's already ruined." Clara met his eyes. "Look, you nearly died in my mine. Your son ran for help without hesitation. Your daughter held pressure on your wound without crying. That tells me you've raised good children, strong children, and I need that kind of strength working for me." "Why are you really doing this?" Clara thought about Thomas working himself to death to prove the mine was worth something. Thought about 3 babies she'd never gotten to raise. Thought about 3 years of crushing loneliness. "Because I understand what it's like to be alone in a town that's already decided who you are. To fight every day just to prove them wrong. And maybe I'm tired of fighting alone." Daniel studied her for a long moment. "If I do this, I pay my way. Every penny of room and board comes out of my wages." "Fine." "And this is strictly business." "Obviously." "Then yes, thank you." They shook hands. His grip was strong despite the pain. Clara felt that handshake all the way up her arm into her chest, warming places that had been cold for years. "Jake, Lily," Daniel called. "Go pack our things. We're moving to Mrs. Whitmore's cabin." The children's faces lit up. They ran out excited. Clara and Daniel were left alone. "The town won't just talk," he said quietly. "They'll make your life hell for this. Let them try. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." Clara turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I think your wife would be proud of you, for doing whatever it takes to protect your children." Daniel's eyes filled. "How did you know about Rachel?" "Small town. Everyone knows everyone's grief." Clara's voice softened. "My husband Thomas died 3 years ago. Heart gave out while working the mine. Everyone said I should sell, remarry, do the proper thing. But I couldn't. The mine was his dream. Abandoning it felt like abandoning him." "So you're still fighting for a dead man?" "I'm fighting for myself. Thomas is gone. But I'm still here, and I'm not giving up what we built. Even if it kills you." "Especially then." They looked at each other. 2 stubborn people who'd lost everything and refused to quit. 2 survivors who were about to learn that the hardest thing isn't surviving alone, it's learning to survive together. Clara left to prepare the cabin. She'd given herself 2 hours. 2 hours to transform a widow's tomb into something that might pass for a home. The spare room still had Thomas's things. His tools, his extra boots, the hat he'd worn every day. Clara had kept it exactly as he'd left it, a shrine to a man who wouldn't want to be remembered this way. She started packing. The tools went into a crate for storage. The boots went to the barn. She stripped the bed, found fresh linens Thomas's mother had made before she passed. Made it up, like someone might actually sleep there. The loft was harder. That's where she'd planned the nursery. Had started painting it yellow before the third baby died. She'd never finished, never had the heart. Now she scrubbed away the half-painted walls and made up a small bed for Lily. Found an old quilt, faded but clean. Set up a bedroll for Jake in the main room by the fireplace. By the time Doc Walsh's wagon pulled up, the cabin looked almost like a home again. Daniel climbed down slowly, moving like every breath cost him. Jake and Lily tumbled out after carrying their few possessions in a canvas sack. "Need help?" Clara asked from the porch. "I can manage." That wasn't the question. Daniel stopped, looked at her. Something passed between them. An understanding. "Yes, I need help." Clara came down the steps, tucked herself under his good arm. He was taller than Thomas, broader through the shoulders. He smelled like wood smoke and iron and something else that made her stomach flip. They made it inside. Clara helped him to the spare room onto the bed. He exhaled slowly, every movement painful. "Thank you." "Stop thanking me. We're going to be living in close quarters. Politeness just gets in the way." A smile tugged at Daniel's mouth. "Yes, ma'am." Jake appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Behind him, Lily clutched her cornhusk doll. "Lily, honey," Clara said. "Your room's up in the loft. Want to see?" The child nodded. Clara led her up the ladder. The loft was small but cozy, with a sloped ceiling and a window that looked out over the valley. Lily set her doll carefully on the pillow. "This is mine. All yours. I've never had my own room before." Something cracked in Clara's chest. "Well, you do now." Lily wrapped her small arms around Clara's waist. Clara froze. Didn't know what to do with her hands. Finally, she rested one palm on the child's head. "Thank you, Miss Clara." "You're welcome, sweet girl." They climbed back down. Jake had unpacked with military efficiency. 3 changes of clothes, each one blanket, a Bible, and a small wooden horse. "I can sleep on the floor," Jake said, looking at his father. "Papa needs the bed more." "You'll sleep by the fire. It's warmer there." Jake's face brightened. Clara moved to the stove, pulled out salt pork beans cornbread from this morning. As she cooked, she felt them watching. 3 people in her space, breathing her air, disrupting 3 years of careful solitude. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like waking up. "Miss Clara?" Lily climbed onto a stool beside the counter. "Can I help?" Clara hesitated, then handed her a wooden spoon. "Stir the beans. Don't let them stick." Lily took the spoon in both hands, her tongue poking out as she concentrated. "You're a natural." "Mama used to let me help, before she got sick and couldn't get out of bed anymore." Clara kept chopping onions, giving the child space to talk or not talk. "She coughed blood," Lily continued softly. "Papa tried to hide it, but I saw. Then one day she went to sleep and didn't wake up." Clara's knife stilled. "I'm sorry, honey. Papa says she's in heaven with the angels, but I wish she was here instead." "Me too." They cooked together in comfortable silence. Jake set the table without being asked. When supper was ready, Daniel emerged from the bedroom, moving carefully but determined. "Smells like heaven." "It's just beans. I haven't had a meal I didn't cook in 2 years. Trust me, it's heaven." They ate. Clara wasn't used to the sounds of other people forks scraping plates, satisfied sighs, Jake asking for seconds. It was strange and familiar all at once, like remembering a language she'd stopped speaking. "Tell me about the mine," Daniel said, pushing his plate away. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. If I'm going to work it, I need to understand what I'm walking into." Clara refilled her coffee. "It's a silver mine. Thomas found the vein 6 years ago. We thought we'd struck it rich, built this cabin, bought equipment, hired workers. But the vein ran shallow. By the time he died, we'd barely pulled enough to cover costs. Why keep going? Because there's more. Has to be. The geology says so. I've been following traces testing different tunnels. It's there. I just haven't found it yet. And Blackwood knows this. Blackwood knows everything. He's had geologists survey this entire mountain. That's why he wants my land so badly. He knows what I'm sitting on. What happens if you don't find it? Clara's jaw tightened. Not an option. I find it. That's the only acceptable outcome. The conversation died. Everyone heard the steel in her voice. Subject closed. After dinner, Clara sent the children to wash up at the pump. Daniel stayed at the table. You don't have to carry this alone anymore, he said quietly. I hired you. That's not a loan. That's not what I mean. Clara turned from the wash basin. Then what do you mean? I mean you're carrying Thomas's dream like it's going to bring him back. But he's gone, Clara. And you're still here, living. You're allowed to want something for yourself. You don't know anything about what I want. You're right. But I know what it's like to make promises to dead people, to spend every day trying to be enough for someone who's never coming back. Daniel stood carefully. My wife made me promise I'd find someone to love the children like she did. I've spent 2 years trying to keep that promise. And you know what I learned? What? That what they need isn't a replacement. They just need me. Present. Alive. Not half dead trying to honor a memory. Clara's hands trembled on the dish towel. Why are you telling me this? Because you saved my life today. And I think maybe you need saving too. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that she was fine, that she didn't need anyone. But the words stuck in her throat, because he was right. She'd been drowning for 3 years, and she was so tired of fighting the current alone. I don't know how, she whispered. How to what? Live with people again. Let them in. I've gotten so good at being alone. So have I. Daniel took a step closer. We'll figure it out together. The door banged open. Jake and Lily rushed in, arguing about whose turn it was to feed the chickens tomorrow. The moment broke. But something had shifted. Some wall had cracked. That night, Clara lay in her bed listening to unfamiliar sounds. Jake's soft snoring from his bedroll. Lily's occasional whimper from the loft. Daniel's careful breathing from the spare room. She should have felt invaded. Instead, she felt less alone than she had in 3 years. Outside the mountain loomed dark. Somewhere in its depths, Silver waited. But tonight, Clara wasn't thinking about Silver. She was thinking about a little girl's hand in hers. A boy's fierce loyalty. A man who'd thanked her for saving him like it was the most extraordinary thing in the world. Maybe that was the real treasure. Not Silver, but this. Connection. Family. The courage to open your heart after it's been broken. The thought terrified her more than any mineshaft ever had. Morning came cold and bright. Clara woke before dawn, like always, started the fire, made coffee. She was pulling on her boots when Daniel emerged, moving stiff but determined. What are you doing up? Same as you, working. Doc said 2 weeks rest. Doc said 2 weeks before heavy labor. I can walk, assess, learn the operation. Clara wanted to argue. Fine, but if you pass out, I'm leaving you there. Fair. They walked down to the mine in the pre-dawn dark. Clara lit lanterns, handed one to Daniel. Stay close. If you feel dizzy, speak up. Yes, ma'am. They descended. The tunnel was narrow, the air thick with dust, and the mineral smell of rock. Clara moved with confidence, knowing every turn, every beam. Daniel followed more slowly. Here's where the main vein runs out, Clara said at a junction. Thomas followed it east for a quarter mile before it disappeared. What about west? Haven't had money for more blasting. Daniel studied the rock wall. What's this? What? These marks. They're not natural. Clara moved closer. He was right. Someone had scratched symbols into the stone, letters and numbers barely visible. I've never noticed those before. Could be survey marks, old claim markers. Daniel traced them with his finger. See this, 1875. This tunnel's older than you thought. Clara's heart began to pound. What are you saying? I'm saying someone else mined here before Thomas, and they left breadcrumbs. They spent the next hour searching. And everywhere Daniel pointed, Clara saw things she'd missed. Old drill holes, discarded equipment, more symbols leading deeper. We need to follow these, Daniel said. We need to get you out before you collapse. I'm fine. You're pale and sweating. We're going up. Daniel swayed. Clara caught him, steadied him. Told you. They made it to the surface. Daniel sat on a boulder, breathing hard. Clara's mind raced. Someone else worked this mountain. Someone who knew something Thomas didn't. And left a trail. But why abandon it? Maybe they didn't. Maybe something happened. They looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. The mountain was dangerous. Plenty of miners died without recording what they'd found. We need to search town records, Clara said. Find out who owned this claim before Thomas. I'll do it. You've got enough to manage. Daniel. I can sit in the town hall and read papers. Let me help Clara. Let me be useful. She wanted to refuse, wanted to handle it herself like always. But she was learning, slowly, that accepting help wasn't weakness. All right, take Jake. I don't trust you not to overdo it. Deal. They walked back. The children were awake, and Lily had attempted breakfast. The kitchen was a disaster, but the little girl looked so proud. I made pancakes. They were lumpy and misshapen. They were perfect. They're beautiful, honey, Clara said, taking one. Thank you. After breakfast, Daniel and Jake left for town. Clara watched them go side by side, and her chest ached with something she couldn't name. She spent the day working surface claims with Lily, teaching the child to sort ore. They worked in comfortable silence, the September sun warm on their backs. Miss Clara, Lily's voice was small. Are we going to stay here forever? Do you want to? I like it here. You're nice. And you don't treat me like I'm broken because Mama died. Clara set down her sorting tray, knelt beside the child. You're not broken, sweet girl. You're just sad. And sad is okay. Sad means you loved someone. Papa says sad is love with nowhere to go. Your papa's a wise man. He's sad too, but I think you make him less sad. Clara's throat tightened. Oh, honey. You do. He smiles when he looks at you, like he forgot how for a long time, and now he's remembering. Before Clara could respond, Lily wrapped her arms around her neck, and Clara held her, feeling something inside her finally start to heal. Daniel and Jake returned at sunset, dusty and triumphant. We found it, Jake said, bursting through the door. We found the old owner. Daniel pulled out a leather journal, water-stained and barely legible. James Whitmore. He filed the original claim in 1874. Died in a cave-in February 1875. Clara took the journal with shaking hands. Whitmore, was he? Thomas's father. Has to be. The dates match. She opened it. Read James Whitmore's mining log. Technical notes, measurements, assay results. And near the end, the handwriting changed. Became excited. Found it. Rich vein, West Tunnel, 80 feet down. Enough silver to make a fortune. We'll mark the spot tomorrow. God be praised. The last entry. The next day, James Whitmore died. He found the silver, Clara whispered, but died before he could tell anyone where. Except he did tell someone, Daniel said. Those symbols in the tunnel. They're his marks, a map to the vein. Thomas never knew. He spent 6 years searching for something his own father had already found. But we know now. Daniel crossed to her. Tomorrow we follow the map. Clara looked at the journal, at proof that everything Thomas believed in was real, that his death hadn't been for nothing. Tomorrow, she agreed. That night after the children were asleep, Clara couldn't settle. She walked outside, stared at the mountain dark against the stars. Daniel found her there. Can't sleep. Too much to think about. He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. I'm scared, Clara said quietly. What if we find it? What if we don't? What if this is real? What if it's all for nothing? Then we deal with it, together. You keep saying that word. Because it's true. Daniel turned to her. 3 days ago, I was dying, slowly, working myself to death trying to be everything for my children. Now I'm here, with you. And for the first time in 2 years, I feel like maybe I can breathe again. Daniel. I'm not asking for anything, just telling you the truth. You make me want to fight again, not just survive, fight. Clara's heart hammered. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand cupped her cheek. Tomorrow we go down into that mountain, he said. We find out what's there, and whatever happens, we face it together. Clara leaned into his touch. Let herself feel for just a moment what it might be like to not be alone. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Together. Daniel smiled. And in that smile, Clara saw her future. Saw possibility. Saw hope she'd stopped daring to believe in. They stood under the vast Colorado sky, two broken people learning to be whole. Tomorrow would bring answers, challenges, maybe triumph, maybe heartbreak. But tonight, they had this moment, this promise. And sometimes that was enough to make you brave enough to face the darkness one more time. Because the only thing scarier than going down into that mountain was spending the rest of your life alone, wondering what might have been if you'd just had the courage to try. Clara Whitmore was learning courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was reaching out anyway. Dawn came too fast. Clara woke with Daniel's words still echoing in her mind. Together. The word felt dangerous and necessary all at once, like holding fire in bare hands. She dressed in the dark, pulled on her work boots, found Daniel already in the kitchen making coffee. His movements were careful, favoring his ribs, but determined. You sure about this? She asked. About going down or about everything else? Both. Daniel handed her a cup. I've never been more sure or more terrified in my life. That answer your question? Perfectly. They stood on opposite sides of the table, the space between them charged with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Jake stumbled out from his bedroll. Are we really going down today to find the silver? We are, Daniel said. But you and Lily stay here. Papa, no, I want to help. You'll help by keeping your sister safe. That's the most important job there is. Jake's face fell, but he understood. He'd grown up learning responsibility the hard way. Lily climbed down from the loft, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Miss Clara, are you going to find treasure today? Maybe, honey, if we're lucky. You will. I prayed for it. Clara's chest tightened. Thank you, sweet girl. They ate quickly. Clara packed supplies while Daniel moved slowly around the cabin, testing his mobility. His face was tight with pain, but he'd never admit it. You shouldn't go down, Clara said, not with broken ribs. Try and stop me. Daniel, be reasonable. What if there's another collapse? Then you'll need someone strong enough to pull you out, like you did for me. She wanted to argue. Instead, she tied a rope around his waist. If you pass out, I'm dragging you back up by this. Fair warning. Fair enough. They left the children with instructions. Stay inside. Keep the door barred. Tell no one where they'd gone. Copper Creek had eyes everywhere, and Blackwood couldn't know what they were looking for. The mine entrance looked different in the morning light. More ominous. like the mountain knew they were coming for its secrets and wasn't happy about it. Clara lit 2 lanterns. "Stay close. Watch your head. And if I say run, you run. Understand?" "Yes, ma'am." They descended. The tunnel was cold and still, the air thick with dust and possibility. Clara moved with practiced ease, Daniel following more carefully. They reached the junction where they'd found James's first symbols. "There," Daniel said, pointing. "That mark. It's pointing west." They turned west into a section Clara had barely explored. Thomas had started this tunnel but abandoned it when the samples came back poor. Except Thomas hadn't known what his father knew. That sometimes you had to dig past the disappointment to find the treasure. They walked for 15 minutes following symbols carved into rock. Each one led them deeper further from safety. Clara's lantern flickered. "Getting low on oil." "How much further?" James wrote 80 feet down. "We're at about 60 now." The tunnel narrowed. They went single file, Clara in front. She could hear Daniel's labored breathing, knew he was hurting, but wouldn't admit it. "There," she breathed. The tunnel opened into a small chamber. On the far wall was a symbol larger than all the others. A star with 8 points, and beneath it, one word carved deep. "Here." Clara's hands shook as she approached. "This is it, where James found the vein." "So where's the silver?" She looked around. The walls were ordinary gray stone. No glint of metal, no obvious seam. Just rock and dust and 3 years of hope about to die. "I don't understand. He said he marked it." Daniel moved closer, studying the star. "Wait. Look at the points. They're not symmetrical. They're directional. Like arrows." "What?" "Each point is slightly longer in one direction." He traced them. "They all point down." Clara's stomach dropped. "The vein's not in the wall. It's under our feet." They looked at each other. Then Clara grabbed her pickaxe and started swinging at the packed earth floor. Daniel helped with a smaller tool. Both working in the pool of lantern light, racing against time and dying hope. 5 minutes. 10. Clara's shoulders burned. Then her pickaxe hit something that rang different. Something hollow. "Stop," Daniel said. They cleared the dirt with their hands. And there, 3 feet down, was a timber hatch. Old, but solid, with an iron ring for a handle. Clara grabbed it. Pulled. The hatch groaned but held. "Together," Daniel said. They pulled together. The hatch gave way with a shriek of rusted hinges. Beneath was darkness. A vertical shaft going straight down with an ancient rope ladder still attached. Clara held her lantern over the opening. The ladder disappeared into black, but she could see something glinting on the walls down there. Something that caught light and threw it back like promises. Silver. "I'm going down," she said. "Not alone. Daniel, your ribs are fine enough. I'm not letting you climb into the dark by yourself." They tied off the safety rope. Clara descended first, testing each rung. The ladder held. Barely. She went down slowly, Daniel following above. 20 feet. 30. The glinting grew brighter. And then Clara's feet touched solid ground, and she held up her lantern and her breath stopped completely. The vein ran the length of the chamber. Pure silver ore embedded in quartz, like someone had poured liquid metal into the rock and let it freeze. More silver than she'd ever imagined. More than she'd dreamed possible in 3 years of desperate hoping. "Sweet Jesus," Daniel whispered beside her. Clara touched the vein with shaking hands. "Thomas died never knowing this was here. His father died trying to protect it. But you found it. That's what matters now." "Is it?" Clara's voice broke. "He could be alive, Daniel. If I'd been smarter, if I'd looked harder, if I'd found these symbols 3 years ago." "Stop." Daniel turned her to face him. "Thomas died because his heart gave out, not because you failed him. And his father died because the mountain's dangerous. Not because you weren't good enough. You hear me? I hear you saying words. Then hear this. You just found enough silver to secure your future and your children's futures. You did it by refusing to quit when everyone said you should. That's not failure, Clara. That's triumph." She wanted to believe him. But guilt was a heavy companion, and she'd been carrying it for 3 years. "We need samples," she said, forcing herself to focus. "Need to have it assayed. Make sure it's as rich as it looks. Clara. And we need to think about security. Blackwood will do anything to get his hands on this. We need to file expanded claims, hire guards, protect. Clara." Daniel's hands gripped her shoulders. "Breathe. Just for 1 minute, let yourself feel it. You won. You kept your promise to Thomas. You proved everyone wrong." Clara's eyes filled with tears she'd been holding for 3 years. "He should be here. This should be his moment." "I know, but he'd be so damn proud of you for not giving up." The tears spilled over. Daniel pulled her close, careful of his ribs, and let her cry against his chest. Let her feel everything she'd been holding back. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "Of fighting, of being strong, of doing this alone." "You don't have to anymore. That's what I keep trying to tell you." She looked up at him. His face was shadowed in the lantern light, but his eyes were steady and honest, and full of something that looked like love. "Daniel, A sound above them. Voices. Multiple people moving through the main tunnel. Clara's blood went ice cold. She grabbed Daniel's arm. "Someone's up there." They climbed fast, but not fast enough. By the time they emerged from the secondary shaft, Samuel Blackwood stood in the chamber with 4 armed men. "Well," Blackwood said, smiling like a wolf. "Looks like you found something interesting, Mrs. Whitmore." Clara stepped in front of Daniel. "Get out of my mine." "You're mine." Blackwood's smile widened. "See, that's where we have a problem. I've been doing research. James Whitmore filed his claim in 1874, but he never paid the annual fees after he died. The claim lapsed, became public land." "That's a lie." Thomas refiled. "Thomas filed on the surface claim, not the secondary shaft, not this chamber." Blackwood pulled out papers. "Which means this silver belongs to whoever files first. And I plan to ride to the land office within the hour." "You can't do this." "I already have. Legal documentation, surveyor's report. All I need is a judge's signature." He gestured to his men. "Escort them out. Board up this chamber. No one accesses it until my paperwork clears." "There has to be a way to fight this," Daniel said, his voice tight with controlled fury. "There isn't." Blackwood's tone was almost kind. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. But business is business. You can keep working the surface mine. But this..." He glanced at the hatch. "This is mine." "No!" Clara's voice shook with rage. "Thomas died for this. His father died for this. You don't get to just steal it." "I'm not stealing anything. I'm claiming what's legally available. Now please let my men do their job." The armed men moved forward. Daniel tensed, but Clara grabbed his hand. They were outnumbered. Fighting would only get them hurt. They let themselves be escorted out. The morning sun was blinding after the darkness. Clara stood blinking, feeling 3 years of work slip through her fingers like water. Blackwood emerged behind them. "For what it's worth, you would have made a fine miner in a different world. But this isn't that world." He mounted his horse and rode away, leaving Clara and Daniel standing in the dust. "We have to stop him," Daniel said. "How he's got lawyers' money judges in his pocket. We've got nothing. We've got the truth. The truth doesn't matter out here." Clara sat heavily on a boulder. "Maybe everyone was right. Maybe I should have quit 3 years ago, gone back east, found an easier life." "You don't believe that." "Don't I?" She looked at him. "I've lost everything, Daniel. My husband, my babies, my dreams, and now this. What's the point of fighting if you always lose?" Daniel knelt in front of her, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "The point is you're still here, still fighting. That matters, Clara. That counts for something. It doesn't count for anything if we lose the silver. We haven't lost yet." She wanted to believe him, but exhaustion was crushing her. She'd been fighting so long, and she was so very tired. They walked back to the cabin in heavy silence. The children were waiting on the porch, their faces eager and excited. "Did you find it?" Jake called. Clara forced a smile. "We found it." "Are we rich now?" "No, honey, we're not rich." Lily's face fell. "Why not?" "It's complicated, sweet girl." Clara walked past them into the cabin, went to her room, closed the door, and for the first time in 3 years, let herself admit defeat. Outside, Daniel sat with the children and tried to explain what had happened. Jake's face went hard and angry. Lily started to cry. "It's not fair," Jake said fiercely. "No, it's not." "So what do we do?" Daniel looked at his son, saw the same fire in Jake's eyes that he'd seen in Clara's. The stubborn refusal to accept injustice. "We fight. We find another way." "But Miss Clara said there is no other way." "Then we make one." Inside her room, Clara lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. She could hear the children's voices muffled through the door, could hear Daniel trying to give them hope when there wasn't any. She thought about Thomas, about the day he'd collapsed in the mine, his heart finally giving out after 6 years of relentless work. She'd found him lying in the dust, his eyes still open, like he'd died looking for something just out of reach. She'd sworn then she had finished what he started, would prove the silver was real, would make his death mean something. But she'd failed. Just like she'd failed to carry 3 babies to term. Just like she was failing Daniel and his children now. A soft knock. "Clara." She didn't answer. Daniel opened the door anyway, came in, sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm riding into town, going to see if there's anyone who can help us." "There isn't." "I'm going anyway." Clara turned her head to look at him. "Why? Why do you care so much about a mine that isn't even yours?" "Because it matters to you. And you matter to me." "You barely know me." "I know you saved my life without thinking twice. I know you took in my children when you didn't have to. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met, and right now you need someone to be strong for you. So let me." "What if you can't fix this?" "Then at least I tried. That's more than most people can say." He stood to leave. Clara caught his hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never." He squeezed her hand. "Rest. I'll be back by sunset." After he left, Clara forced herself to get up. The children needed lunch. Life didn't stop just because your heart was breaking. She found them in the kitchen. Lily was drawing pictures. Jake was whittling a piece of wood, his face set in concentration. "Miss Clara." Lily looked up. "Are you sad?" "Yes, honey, I am." "Papa says it's okay to be sad sometimes. He says sad means you cared about something." Clara knelt beside her. "Your papa's very wise. He likes you, I can tell." "How can you tell?" "Because he smiles when you're around. He didn't smile for a long time after Mama died, but now he does." Clara's throat tightened. "I like him too. Are you going to be our new mama?" The question hit Clara like a fist. "I don't know, sweet girl. That's complicated." "Why?" "Because grown-up things are always complicated." Jake set down his whittling. "If you and Papa got married, would that mean we could stay here forever?" "Jake, because I like it here. I like having a home that doesn't move. I like helping in the mine. And Lily loves you, I can tell." Clara looked at these 2 children who'd somehow worked their way into her heart in just 4 days. 4 days, and she couldn't imagine the cabin without them. "I like having you here too, both of you." "Then don't give up," Jake said fiercely. "That's what you told me. That you don't give up just because things get hard. Sometimes giving up is the smart thing to do." "Papa says smart and right aren't always the same thing." Clara laughed, despite herself. "Your father says a lot of wise things." "So you'll keep fighting?" She looked at Jake's earnest face, at Lily's hopeful eyes. at the life that had somehow grown in her cabin in less than a week. "I'll keep fighting." Daniel rode straight to Doc Walsh's office, found the doctor writing medical journals. "I need help," Daniel said without preamble. "The kind that stops a powerful man from stealing everything from a woman who's already lost too much." Doc Walsh looked up. "Samuel Blackwood. You know. Everyone knows. Blackwood's been circling Clara's land like a vulture for 3 years." He closed his book. "Question is, what are you willing to do about it? Whatever it takes. Even if it costs you everything, Blackwood doesn't forget enemies." Daniel thought of Clara's face when she'd touched that silver vein. Thought of her tears. Thought of how she'd saved his life without hesitation. "Then I'll pay that price. But I won't watch him destroy her." Doc Walsh smiled. "Good, because I've been waiting 3 years for someone to stand up to that bastard." He stood. "Come on, there's someone you need to meet." They walked 2 blocks to a small office above the general store. A painted sign read, "Legal Services. Eleanor Hayes, Attorney at Law." Daniel stopped. A woman lawyer. The only one in Colorado territory, and the smartest person I know. Doc knocked. Eleanor Hayes opened the door. She was maybe 55, with gray hair pulled back severe and eyes sharp as glass behind wire spectacles. "Henry, what brings you?" "This is Daniel McKenna. He needs your help stopping Samuel Blackwood from stealing Clara Whitmore's silver claim." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Does he now come in?" The office was small but organized. Law books lined every wall. Eleanor gestured for them to sit. "Tell me everything. Don't leave out details." Daniel told her. About the secondary shaft, about James Whitmore's death, about Blackwood's claim that the paperwork had lapsed. Eleanor listened without interrupting, her face growing thoughtful. "Interesting," she said when he finished. "Very interesting. Can you help?" "Possibly. Blackwood's right that James Whitmore's claim lapsed after his death. But there's a provision in territorial law called familial inheritance. If Thomas Whitmore was James's legal heir, and if Thomas can be proven to have worked the claim continuously, then the lapse doesn't matter. The claim passes through blood regardless of paperwork gaps. But Thomas is dead. Doesn't matter. The claim still passes to his widow. All we need is proof of the family connection." "How do we get that?" Eleanor leaned back. "We find James Whitmore's will, his death certificate, marriage records, anything showing Thomas was his son or nephew, birth certificates if we're lucky. How much time do we have?" "Not much. Blackwood will move fast, maybe 2 days before he gets a judge's signature. We need to file a counterclaim first." Daniel stood. "Then let's start looking." They spent the afternoon searching. Town hall records, church documents, cemetery records, everywhere that might have information about James Whitmore's life. But the records were incomplete, damaged by fire and time and neglect. As the sun started to set, Daniel returned to Eleanor's office empty-handed and desperate. Nothing. It's like James Whitmore didn't exist before he filed that claim. Eleanor tapped her pen against her desk. "There's one more place we haven't looked." "Where?" "The mine itself. James died down there. Maybe he left something behind. Personal effects. A Bible with family names written inside. Something. The secondary shaft is boarded up. Blackwood has guards posted." "Then you'll have to be creative." Eleanor met his eyes. "How badly do you want this?" "More than anything." "Then prove it." Daniel rode back to the cabin as darkness fell. Found Clara on the porch staring at nothing. She looked up when he dismounted. "Any luck?" "Maybe. There's a lawyer in town. Eleanor Hayes. She thinks we can fight this using familial inheritance law." "What's that?" "If we can prove Thomas was James's son, the claim passes to you regardless of lapsed paperwork. But we need documentation." Hope flickered in Clara's eyes. "What kind of documentation?" "Birth certificates, marriage records, a will, anything showing the family connection. And if we can't find them, then Eleanor thinks James might have left something in the mine, personal effects, maybe a Bible. Clara stood slowly. The secondary shaft is guarded. I know. If we get caught, Blackwood will have us arrested for trespassing. I know that too. They looked at each other, both understanding what this meant. They'd be breaking the law, risking everything. But sometimes right and legal weren't the same thing. When? Clara asked. Tonight. Blackwood's guards will be tired, inattentive. We slip in search, fast, slip out. That's insane. You have a better idea. Clara thought about the silver chamber, about Thomas's dream, about 3 years of fighting. She thought about Jake's fierce voice saying, "Don't give up," about Lily's small hand in hers. No, I don't have a better idea. She looked at Daniel. But if we're doing this, we do it smart. We need a distraction. What kind of distraction? A slow smile spread across Clara's face, the kind that involves a lot of whiskey and some friendly conversation. An hour later, Clara walked into the Silver Dollar Saloon like she owned it. Every head turned. Women didn't come into saloons, especially not respectable widows. Clara walked straight to the bar. Whiskey, the good stuff. The bartender stared. Mrs. Whitmore, you deaf whiskey. He poured. Clara downed it in one swallow, slammed the glass down. Another. By the third glass, she'd gathered a crowd. By the fifth, she was telling stories about working the mine, making them laugh, making them forget about everything except the strange sight of Clara Whitmore getting drunk in public. Outside, Daniel moved through the darkness toward the mine. He'd left Jake and Lily with Martha Brennan, who'd been surprisingly willing to help once she understood what was at stake. 2 guards stood at the mine entrance. Daniel watched them from the rocks. They were bored tired, passing a flask between them. Probably thought this was the easiest money they'd ever made. Daniel picked up a rock, threw it hard to the left. Both guards' heads whipped toward the sound. What was that? Probably nothing, a coyote. Go check. One guard moved off into the darkness. The other stayed at the entrance, but he was looking away now, distracted. Daniel moved fast and silent. Got past the entrance into the tunnel before the guard even knew he'd been there. He lit his lantern with shaking hands. Descended to the secondary chamber. The hatch was boarded up again, but loosely. He pried off enough boards to slip through. Climbed down the rope ladder into the silver chamber. Started searching by lantern light, the walls, the floor, every crack and crevice. Nothing. His time was running out. The guards would notice him gone eventually. Clara couldn't keep the saloon distracted forever. Think. Where would you hide something valuable? Daniel's eyes landed on the support beam near the ladder base. It was thicker than the others, older, and carved into it were initials, J.W. He approached it slowly, ran his hands over the wood. One section sounded hollow when he tapped it. He worked his knife into a seam pried carefully. With a crack, a section of the beam swung open. Inside was a small cavity, and in that cavity, wrapped in oilcloth, was a leather pouch. Daniel's hands shook as he opened it. Inside were papers, a will, a family Bible with names and dates written inside, and a letter addressed, "To whoever finds this." He read it by lantern light. "If you're reading this, I'm dead." Pray it was quick. "I'm writing because I know Blackwood. Know he'll try to steal this claim the minute I'm gone. Don't let him. This silver belongs to my son Thomas. Tell him his father loved him. Tell him to be smarter than I was. Tell him the mountain doesn't care about your courage, it only cares if you're willing to pay the price." James Whitmore. February 1875. Daniel's throat closed. James had known he might die and still went down, because he wanted to leave his son something. Footsteps above. Voices. "Someone's down here. I saw a light." Daniel shoved the papers inside his shirt, climbed the ladder fast, emerged in the main chamber just as the guards arrived. "Hey! Stop!" Daniel ran. Through the tunnel, dodging beams and rocks. His ribs screamed. His lungs burned. Behind him, the guards were shouting, chasing. He burst out of the mine entrance, sprinted for the tree line. Made it into the darkness just as gunfire cracked behind him. A bullet whined past his ear. Another kicked up dust at his feet. Daniel ran harder, through the trees down the mountainside, not stopping until he reached the edge of town. He doubled over, gasping. His ribs felt like they were on fire. But he had the papers. He had proof. At the saloon, Clara was on her 8th whiskey and starting to wobble. She'd told every story she knew twice. Sung 2 songs. Was running out of ways to keep these men entertained. Doc Walsh appeared in the doorway, made eye contact, nodded once. Clara stood unsteadily. "Well, gentlemen, it's been fun. But this widow needs her bed." She walked out into the night. The cold air hit her face like a slap. She wasn't actually drunk, had been spitting half of each drink into a spittoon when no one was looking. But she'd played the part well enough. Daniel was waiting in the shadows. He grabbed her arm, pulled her into an alley. "Did you get it?" He showed her the pouch. "Birth records, will, everything Eleanor needs. Then we run, now." They ran through the back streets to Eleanor's office, pounded on the door until she appeared wrapped in a dressing gown and looking annoyed. "This better be good." Daniel thrust the pouch at her. "Proof. Family Bible shows Thomas was James's son. The will leaves everything to Thomas. And there's a letter." Eleanor took the documents, read them by candlelight. A slow smile spread across her face. "This is good. This is very good." She looked up. "Blackwood's filing is scheduled for tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. We need to be there first." "Can we file now?" "Land office is closed, but I can prepare the counterclaim tonight. We'll be waiting when they open at 8. Daniel sagged against the doorframe. "We did it. Don't celebrate yet. Blackwood won't give up easily." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "But we've got law on our side now. And out here, sometimes that's enough." Clara and Daniel walked back to the cabin through the pre-dawn darkness. Neither spoke. They were both too exhausted, too wired, too terrified and hopeful all at once. At the cabin door, Clara stopped. "Thank you. For tonight. For everything." "You'd do the same for me." "I already did. 4 days ago." Daniel smiled. "Then we're even." "Are we?" She looked up at him, and in the moonlight she saw everything she'd been too afraid to hope for. Partnership, respect, maybe even love. "Clara." "Don't. Not yet. Let's win this fight first. Then we'll figure out what comes next. And if we lose, then we figure it out anyway, together." She touched his face. Just once. Then went inside before she could do something foolish like kiss him and mean it. Daniel stood on the porch for a long time, his hand pressed to where she'd touched him. Inside the cabin, he could hear the children's soft breathing. Could smell coffee starting to brew. Could feel the weight of family settling around him, like a blanket he didn't know he'd been missing. Tomorrow they'd fight for the mine, for Clara's future and his children's legacy, for the right to build something that lasted. But tonight, in this quiet moment before dawn, Daniel McKenna let himself believe they might actually win. And that believing was worth every risk, every terror, every moment of doubt. Because some things were worth fighting for. And this woman who'd saved his life without hesitation, who'd opened her home to his children, who'd shown him what courage really looked like, she was worth everything. Morning came like Judgment Day. Clara woke before dawn, her stomach in knots. Today would decide everything. The mine, her future, whether 3 years of fighting had been worth the cost. She dressed quickly, found Daniel already up. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's go anyway." They woke the children, fed them quickly. Martha Brennan arrived to watch them, her face grave. "You fight hard today," Martha said, squeezing Clara's hand. "Don't let that bastard win." "I won't." They rode to town in the pre-dawn cold. The land office wouldn't open for 2 hours, but Eleanor was already there pacing outside with documents clutched to her chest. "I've got everything filed and ready. When those doors open, we go in first. Establish our claim before Blackwood even gets here." "What if he's already been?" Clara asked. "He hasn't. I had Doc Walsh watching his house all night. He's still asleep, confident he's won." Eleanor's smile was sharp. "He's about to get a very rude awakening." They waited. The sun climbed slowly. Other people arrived, going about their business, not knowing that a war was being fought in the shadows. At 7:45, Samuel Blackwood's carriage pulled up. He stepped out, saw them, and his face went hard. "Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. McKenna, Miss Hayes, what a surprise." "Is it?" Eleanor said coolly. "Did you think we'd just roll over? I think you're wasting your time. The law is clear. So is familial inheritance. And we have documentation." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "What documentation?" "You'll find out soon enough." At 8 o'clock, exactly, the land office clerk opened the doors. Eleanor walked in first, Clara and Daniel right behind her. Blackwood followed his lawyer, scrambling to keep up. The clerk looked up, startled to see so many people so early. "I need to file a counterclaim," Eleanor announced, placing her documents on the counter. "On behalf of Clara McKenna née Whitmore, widow of Thomas Whitmore, who was the legal heir of James Whitmore, original claimant of the Whitmore mine, and all associated properties including secondary shafts and mineral deposits." The clerk blinked. Those are all the necessary documents. Birth certificate proving Thomas was James's son. James's will naming Thomas as sole heir. Thomas's marriage certificate to Clara. And a letter from James himself stating his intentions. Blackwood's lawyer grabbed the documents, read them frantically. His face went pale. "These change things," he muttered to Blackwood. "They change nothing. We'll argue the dates, the validity." "You can argue all you want," Eleanor said. "But the law is the law, and Judge Morrison follows the law." The clerk looked overwhelmed. "I need to get the judge. He'll have to rule on this." "You do that," Eleanor said. They waited in tense silence. Other townspeople started gathering, sensing drama. Word spread fast in Copper Creek. Within 20 minutes, half the town had crowded into the land office. Judge Morrison arrived, looking irritated at being summoned before his morning coffee. He was 70, white-haired, stern, but fair. He'd presided over Thomas Whitmore's estate 3 years ago. "What's all this about?" Eleanor explained quickly. The judge took the documents, read them carefully. The room held its collective breath. Finally, Judge Morrison looked up. "The inheritance provision is clear. Thomas Whitmore was James Whitmore's legal son and heir. The claim passes through blood regardless of paperwork gaps. Mr. Blackwood, your filing is denied." "You can't," Blackwood started. "I can, and I have. Mrs. McKenna owns that mine, all of it, including the secondary shaft you tried to claim." He banged his gavel. "This matter is closed." The room erupted. Some people cheered. Others whispered. Clara stood frozen, unable to believe it was over. "We won," Daniel breathed. "Clara, we won." Blackwood's face turned purple with rage. "I'll appeal. I'll take this to territorial court. You do that," Judge Morrison said tiredly. "But until then, Mrs. McKenna's claim stands, and if I hear you've been anywhere near her property, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Are we clear?" Blackwood stared at Clara with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," Clara said quietly. "It is. You lost. Accept it." He stormed out, his lawyer trailing behind. The crowd began to disperse. People congratulating Clara, shaking Daniel's hand, telling Eleanor she was brilliant. But Clara couldn't feel it yet, couldn't let herself believe. "Is it really over?" she asked Eleanor. "It's really over. The mine is yours. All of it." Clara's knees buckled. Daniel caught her, held her up. She pressed her face against his chest, and finally let herself feel it. Relief, joy, exhaustion. 3 years of fear and fighting, and she'd won. "Thomas," she whispered, "I did it. I kept my promise." Daniel held her while she cried, held her while the town watched and whispered, held her like he'd never let go. When she could breathe again, Clara pulled back. "I need to see it. Need to go down there and know it's real. Now. Right now." They rode back to the cabin, told the children the news. Jake and Lily whooped with joy, dancing around the kitchen. Martha cried and hugged Clara fierce. "You did it, girl. You actually did it." "We did it," Clara corrected. "All of us." She changed into work clothes, grabbed her gear. Daniel did the same, moving slower but determined. "You sure you're up for this?" Clara asked. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." They walked down to the mine together. The morning sun was warm on their faces. The mountain looked different now, less threatening, like it had finally decided to share its secrets. They descended to the secondary chamber, climbed down into the silver vein. In the daylight from their lanterns, the ore gleamed like stars trapped in stone. Clara touched it reverently. This is what Thomas saw, what he believed in. "And you found it. You made his dream real." "No, we found it, together." She turned to Daniel. "I couldn't have done this without you. You know that, right?" "I know we did it together, and that matters more than who did what." They stood in the chamber, surrounded by enough wealth to change their lives forever. But Clara wasn't thinking about the money. She was thinking about the man beside her, about 2 children waiting in her cabin, about the family that had somehow grown from tragedy and stubbornness. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we work it properly, hire good men, extract the silver safely, build something that lasts." "I meant with us." Daniel went still. "What do you want to happen with us?" Clara turned to face him fully. "I want you to stay, not just as my foreman. I want you and Jake and Lily to stay. Permanently." "Clara, I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But Daniel, when you're down in the dark and someone brings you light, you don't question it. You just hold on." "Is that what I am to you, Light?" "You're everything. You and those children. You make me remember what it feels like to be alive instead of just surviving." Daniel cupped her face in his work-roughened hands. "I'm falling in love with you, Clara. Have been since the minute you lifted that beam off me and told me to stop thanking you. That was 5 days ago. I know, crazy, isn't it? Completely insane. So what do we do about it?" Clara smiled. "We be insane together." He kissed her, then deep and desperate, and full of everything they'd been holding back. Clara kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, even though they were surrounded by silver and dust and the ghosts of dead dreamers. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Marry me," Daniel said. "What?" "Marry me. Not because it's proper or convenient. Because I love you. Because my children love you. Because I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine and I'm yours." "Daniel, that's crazy, I know. But out here, crazy is the only thing that makes sense." Clara thought about Thomas. About the promises she'd made over his grave. About 3 babies she'd buried, and thought she'd never risk that kind of loss again. But maybe promises could change. Maybe opening your heart again wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was the bravest thing you could do. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it." Daniel's smile was bright as sunrise. He kissed her again, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around in the silver chamber, while she laughed like she hadn't laughed in years. They climbed back up, emerged into daylight holding hands, and standing at the mine entrance was half the town. Doc Walsh, Martha Brennan, Eleanor Hayes, the O'Brien brothers, and dozens of others, all waiting. "Did you 2 get engaged down there?" Martha called. "Because if you did, I'm organizing the wedding, and I won't hear no for an answer." Clara looked at Daniel. He shrugged, grinning. Yes, Clara called back. We're getting married. The crowd erupted in cheers. Women rushed forward to hug Clara. Men clapped Daniel on the back. It was chaos and joy and everything Clara hadn't known she needed. Doc Walsh pulled her aside. You sure about this? It's been less than a week. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Good, because that man looks at you like you hung the moon, and you deserve someone who sees you that way. Thank you, Henry, for everything. That afternoon, the cabin was full of people. Martha brought food. Other women brought fabric for a dress. Men started building new furniture, expanding the cabin to fit a growing family. Clara stood in the middle of the chaos, watching Daniel teach Jake how to properly hammer a nail, watching Lily help Martha roll out pie dough, and felt her heart was too full to hold it all. Eleanor appeared beside her. Quite a day you've had. Quite a week. You know the whole town's talking about you, right? The widow who found silver and a husband all in 5 days. Let them talk. That's my girl. Eleanor squeezed her arm. You fought for what you wanted and won. That's rare out here. Don't take it for granted. I won't. As evening fell, people began to leave. Finally, it was just Clara, Daniel, and the children. They sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountain. Miss Clara. Lily climbed into her lap. Are you really going to be our mama now? Clara's throat tightened. Do you want me to be? Yes, very much. Then yes, sweet girl, I'm going to be your mama. Lily wrapped her arms around Clara's neck. Jake moved closer too, leaning against Daniel, but looking at Clara with something like hope in his eyes. What about Mama Rachel? Jake asked quietly. Will you be mad if I still love her? Oh, honey, no. Clara reached out, pulled him close. You should always love your mama. She gave you life. She loved you first. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm just trying to add to what she started. Papa said that too, but I wanted to hear you say it. You can love us both. Hearts don't work on limits, Jake. They expand. They make room. Daniel's hand found Clara's, squeezed tight. They sat together as the stars came out, a family built from loss and chance and the courage to try again. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara and Daniel sat by the fire talking about the future. We should hire proper workers, Daniel said. At least 6 men to work the silver vein safely. I was thinking 8. And we need better equipment, proper ventilation, safety protocols. That's expensive. We can afford it now, and I'd rather spend money on safety than have another accident. Clara looked at him. I almost lost you once. I'm not risking that again. Fair enough. What about the children's school? Jake and Lily both start next week. I already told Miss Hart I'd pay the fees. Clara, you don't have to. I want to. They're brilliant children. They deserve every opportunity. She paused. What about more children? Do you want more? Daniel went still. I thought after what happened to you, I lost 3 babies because I was working myself to death while pregnant, trying to do everything alone. But things are different now. I have help. I have you. And maybe I could try again. Only if you want to. I'm happy with Jake and Lily. I don't need more. But do you want more? He met her eyes. Yes. I want to see you round with my child. Want to be there for the birth, support you through it. Want to give Jake and Lily a sibling, but only if it's what you want too. Clara thought about empty arms and silent babies, about 3 graves on the hill, about all the fear she'd carried for 3 years. Then she thought about Lily's laughter, Jake's fierce loyalty, Daniel's steady strength. I want to try, she whispered. I'm terrified, but I want to try. Then we try, together, and whatever happens, we face it together. They sat by the fire until it burned low, talking and planning and dreaming. Building a future from the ashes of the past. The next morning, Clara woke to pounding on the door. She threw on a robe, opened it to find Doc Walsh looking grave. Samuel Blackwood left town last night, but before he went he made threats. Said this wasn't over. Said you'd regret humiliating him. Clara's blood ran cold. What kind of threats? The dangerous kind. Clara, the man's pride is wounded, and wounded pride makes men do stupid things. You think he'll come after the mine? I think he'll come after something. You need to be careful. Post guards. Keep the children close. After Doc left, Clara told Daniel. His face went hard. I'll hire men today. Armed men who know how to handle trouble. Daniel, I don't want this to turn violent. Neither do I. But I won't stand by and let him hurt you or the children. Some things are worth fighting for. They hired 4 men that day. Rough but reliable. Men who'd seen trouble and knew how to handle it. 2 to guard the mine. 2 to watch the cabin at night. Life went on. The children started school. Clara and Daniel began planning the wedding. Work on the mine progressed. But there was a tension now. A waiting for the other shoe to drop. It came 3 days later. Clara was working surface claims when she heard shouting. Ran toward the mine entrance to find one of the guards on the ground bleeding from a head wound. The other guard was fighting off 3 masked men. Clara grabbed a pickaxe, charged forward, swung hard, connected with one attacker's shoulder. He yelped, stumbled back. Get away from my mine! More men appeared from the tree line. 6, 8. Too many to fight. But then the O'Brien brothers arrived, attracted by the noise. Then Isaiah and Carlos from the adjoining claims. Within minutes, Clara had a small army standing with her. The masked men saw they were outnumbered, retreated into the trees. But one of them called back. This isn't over, widow. Blackwood says hello. They vanished. Clara helped the injured guard to his feet, her hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. Everyone all right? Fine, ma'am, Sean O'Brien said. But they'll be back. Men like that don't give up easy. Daniel arrived, running Jake and Lily with him. When he saw Clara covered in dust and holding a bloody pickaxe, his face went white. What happened? Blackwood sent men. They tried to storm the mine. Jesus. He pulled her close, checked her for injuries. You're not hurt. I'm fine. Angry, but fine. That night, they doubled the guards. Posted men at the cabin, too. Jake wanted to help stand watch, but Daniel refused. You're 10. This isn't your fight. It is if someone's threatening our family. The word family hit Clara in the chest. Jake had never called them that before, never claimed her so completely. Your job is to keep Lily safe, Clara said. If anything happens, you get her out. Don't be a hero, just run. Can you do that? Jake nodded, understanding the weight of what she was asking. They made it through the night without incident. But the next morning they found the mine entrance sabotaged. Someone had tried to collapse the tunnel with explosives. The charges failed, but the message was clear. He's trying to destroy it, Clara said, staring at the scorch marks. If he can't have it, he'll make sure no one can. Then we end this, Daniel said. Now, before someone gets killed. How? We go to Blackwood, directly. Force him to back down. He won't listen. Then we make him listen. They rode into town at noon. Found Blackwood at the hotel packing to leave. When he saw them, he smiled like a snake. Mrs. McKenna, Mr. McKenna, come to beg me to stop. Come to give you a chance to walk away with your dignity, Clara said. Stop the attacks. Leave Copper Creek. We'll call it even. Even you humiliated me in front of the whole town. You tried to steal my land. We're hardly even. Blackwood's smile turned cold. You think you've won. But I can destroy you, Clara. I have money connections power. I can make your life a living hell. Try it, Daniel said quietly, and see what happens. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You come after her again, you come after our children, and I'll make sure every newspaper in Colorado knows how Samuel Blackwood tried to steal a widow's mine using legal tricks and violence. See how that affects your business prospects." Blackwood's face went red. "You wouldn't dare. Test me." They stared at each other. Finally, Blackwood looked away. "Fine. I'll leave Copper Creek. But mark my words, you haven't seen the last of me." "I'm counting on it," Clara said, "because next time I'll be ready." They left him there, packing his bags and nursing his wounded pride. Outside, Clara let out a shaky breath. "You think he'll actually leave us alone?" "For now. His type always moves on to easier targets." Daniel took her hand. "But we'll be ready if he doesn't." They rode back to the cabin in thoughtful silence. The threat wasn't gone. It was just postponed. But maybe that was enough. Maybe you didn't need complete victory. Just enough peace to build something worth protecting. That evening, the whole town gathered at the church for a meeting. Pastor Morrison stood at the pulpit looking uncomfortable. "We need to discuss recent events. The violence at the Whitmore mine. The threats. This community needs to decide where we stand." "We stand with Clara," Doc Walsh said, rising. "She's been fighting alone for 3 years. It's time we showed her she's not alone anymore." "Hear, hear," Martha Brennan called. One by one, people stood. The O'Brien brothers, Isaiah and Carlos, Miss Hart from the school, families Clara had thought turned their backs on her years ago. "We were wrong," one man said. "We judged you for not knowing your place. But you showed us a woman's place is wherever she's strong enough to stand. And you're stronger than all of us." Clara's eyes filled with tears. 3 years of fighting, and finally the town was on her side. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. "All of you. I couldn't have done this alone." "You won't have to anymore," Pastor Morrison said. "This community stands with you, now and always." After the meeting, people lingered, talking, laughing, making plans. And for the first time since Thomas died, Clara felt like she belonged. She found Daniel outside with the children. He was pointing out constellations, telling them stories about the stars. When he saw Clara, he smiled. "Ready to go home?" Home. The word sounded right. Perfect. More than ready. They walked back together through the September night. The mountain loomed dark against the stars, its silver secrets safe beneath the stone. Clara had fought for 3 years to claim what was hers, had lost and found and lost again. But tonight, walking with her soon-to-be husband and children, Clara realized she'd won more than silver. She'd won a family, a community, a future worth fighting for. And in the hard country of Colorado Territory, where survival was never guaranteed, and happy endings were earned through blood and tears, that was the only victory that truly mattered. She looked up at Daniel. He smiled down at her. And Clara knew bone deep that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Because some things were worth any risk, worth any fight, worth opening your heart again even after it's been broken. Love was one of those things. And Clara Whitmore McKenna was finally brave enough to reach for it. The wedding was set for Saturday, 3 days away. Clara stood in Martha Brennan's kitchen, being fitted for a dress she never thought she'd wear again. "Hold still," Martha said around a mouthful of pins. "You're fidgeting like a nervous schoolgirl." "I'm terrified of marrying Daniel. That man worships the ground you walk on. Of being happy. Of having everything I want and then losing it." Clara's voice dropped. "Every time I've been happy, God took it away. Thomas, the babies. What if this is the same?" Martha's hands stilled. She came around to face Clara. "Listen to me. You can't live your life afraid of loss. That's not living. That's just waiting to die. But what if the sky falls? What if the mountain crumbles? What if? Martha gripped Clara's shoulders. Or what if you marry that good man and have 50 years of happiness? What if you raise those children and have grandchildren? What if this is your reward for 3 years of hell? Clara's eyes filled. I don't know how to believe in good things anymore. Then let Daniel believe for both of you, until you remember how. That afternoon, Clara walked to the cemetery, stood before Thomas's grave for the first time since Daniel arrived. The headstone was simple. Thomas Whitmore, beloved husband, dreamer. I found it, she said quietly. The silver you always knew was there. You were right all along. The wind rustled through the grass. Clara took that as answer enough. I'm getting married again, to a good man, a widower with 2 children who need a mother. I think you'd like him. He's strong and kind, and he doesn't try to change me. He sees me, really sees me. She knelt, touched the cold stone. I loved you, Thomas. I did. But I'm learning that loving you doesn't mean I can't love someone else. That choosing to live again isn't betraying your memory. I hope you understand. A hand touched her shoulder. Clara looked up to find Daniel standing there holding wildflowers. I was bringing these for Rachel's grave. Saw you here. I needed to say goodbye, properly this time. Want company? Please. They walked together to Rachel's grave. It was smaller, newer. Rachel McKenna, beloved wife and mother, taken too soon. Daniel knelt, placed the flowers carefully. I found someone, Rach, like you asked. Someone kind who loves the children. Clara's strong and stubborn and nothing like you. But I think that's why it works. I'm not trying to replace what we had. I'm building something new. His voice broke. Clara knelt beside him, took his hand. She'd want you to be happy, Clara said softly. I know. Doesn't make the guilt any easier. No, but we carry it together now, your guilt and mine. Maybe that makes it lighter. Daniel pulled her close. They knelt there between 2 graves, 2 survivors learning that honoring the dead meant choosing to live. 3 more days, Daniel said. Then you're stuck with me forever. Promise? On my life. They walked back to town hand in hand. Found chaos waiting. Jake was in the town square, bloody-nosed and defiant, surrounded by 3 older boys. Lily was crying, and Sheriff Hayes was trying to break it up. What happened? Daniel demanded. These boys said Miss Clara was a bad word, Jake spat. Said she was trapping you into marriage for your money. I told them to shut their mouths. So you started a fight. They started it, I just finished it. One of the other boys, maybe 13, sneered. He broke my nose. Good, Clara said, stepping forward. Anyone else want to say something about me trapping Mr. McKenna? The boys went silent. The crowd that had gathered suddenly found other places to be. Sheriff Hayes sighed. Jake, fighting's not the answer. What is the answer? When people say lies about people you love. You walk away, you let their words bounce off you. That's what Miss Clara said too, but I can't just let them talk bad about her. Daniel pulled Jake aside. Son, I appreciate you defending Clara. But you can't fight every person who says something cruel. You'll spend your whole life with bloody knuckles. So I just let them talk. You let your actions speak louder. You show them who Clara really is by how we live, by being happy, by building something they can't tear down with words. Jake wiped his bloody nose. I still think my way's faster. Probably, but my way keeps you out of jail. That night the cabin felt different, more alive. Lily was drawing pictures of wedding flowers. Jake was practicing his reading by lantern light. Daniel was repairing a chair. And Clara was cooking supper, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Miss Clara. Lily appeared at her elbow. After you marry Papa, should I call you Mama? Clara's hands stilled on the knife. Do you want to call me Mama? I think so, but I don't want Mama Rachel to be mad. Clara knelt down. Your Mama Rachel loved you so much, And that love doesn't go away just because she's gone. But love isn't like pie, honey. It doesn't run out when you share it. Your heart's big enough for both of us. Really. Really. So if you want to call me Mama, I'd be honored. And if you want to keep calling me Miss Clara, that's okay too. Whatever feels right to you. Lily thought about this seriously. Then she wrapped her arms around Clara's neck. Mama Clara, she whispered. Clara's eyes burned. Yes, sweet girl. I love you. I love you too, so very much. Across the room, Daniel was watching with tears in his eyes. Jake tried to hide that he was watching too, but Clara saw the longing on his face, the fear. He wasn't ready yet to call her Mama. But maybe someday. That was enough. Friday morning brought disaster. Clara was reviewing accounts when Martha burst through the door, her face pale. Doc Walsh just got word. There's scarlet fever in Denver. It's spreading fast. Heading this way. Clara's blood went cold. How bad? Bad enough. Whole families wiped out. Kids mostly. Clara, if it reaches Copper Creek. She didn't need to finish. Clara knew what diseases like this did to small towns. Knew how fast they spread. Knew that children like Jake and Lily were most vulnerable. What do we do? Doc says quarantine. Anyone who shows symptoms. Keep the children away from town. Pray it passes us by. Daniel appeared in the doorway. I heard. We should postpone the wedding. What, no? Clara, we can't have the whole town gathered in one place if there's fever coming. It's too risky. But he's right, Martha said gently. A wedding can wait. People's lives can't. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to scream that she'd waited long enough, fought hard enough, deserved this one day of happiness. But Daniel was right. She knew he was right. Fine, we postpone. But just until the danger passes. Just until it's safe. Daniel agreed. By afternoon, the first cases appeared. The Hendersons' youngest daughter. The blacksmith's apprentice. Both burning with fever covered in the telltale rash. Doc Walsh set up a quarantine area in the church. Families with sick children moved in. Others stayed away terrified. Clara wanted to help, but Daniel stopped her. You can't. What if you get sick? What if you bring it home to Jake and Lily? So I just hide while people suffer. You keep our children safe. That's how you help. It went against every instinct. But Clara knew he was right. She stayed at the cabin with the children while Daniel and Doc Walsh worked the quarantine. 3 days passed. More people fell sick. 2 children died. The town held its breath, waiting to see who would be next. On the 4th day, Jake woke up with a fever. Clara felt her world stop. She touched his forehead. Burning hot. Daniel, she called, trying to keep her voice steady. Daniel, come here. He took one look at Jake, and his face went white. No, not him. We need Doc Walsh. Now. I can't leave you here alone with... Go! Clara's voice cracked. Get the doctor. I'll stay with Jake. Daniel ran. Clara stripped Jake down, sponged him with cool water, tried not to let him see her terror. Am I going to die, Miss Clara? No, absolutely not. I won't allow it. But those other kids... You're stronger than they were, and you've got me fighting for you. That counts for something. Jake's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared. Me too, honey. Me too. Doc Walsh arrived within the hour, examined Jake thoroughly. When he stood, his face was grave. It's scarlet fever, no doubt. Can you help him? I can try. But Clara, you need to understand. This disease, it takes children fast, especially the weak ones. Jake's not weak. He's thin, underfed for years before he came here. His body's already been through so much. Doc Walsh gripped her shoulder. Prepare yourself, just in case. No, I'm not preparing for him to die. I'm preparing to fight like hell to keep him alive. Doc Walsh left medicine and instructions. Then he left, needing to tend other patients. Daniel wanted to stay, but Clara wouldn't let him. Lily needs you. She can't be exposed. Take her to Martha's. Stay there. I can't leave Jake. Yes, you can. Because if you and Lily get sick too, I'll have to choose who to care for. Don't make me choose Daniel. Please. He understood. Gathered Lily, who was crying and confused, and left. The cabin fell silent except for Jake's labored breathing. Clara sat beside him through the night, sponged his fever, forced water and medicine down his throat, talked to him about everything and nothing, told him stories about Thomas, about the mine, about the future they'd have when he got better. Because he had to get better. She couldn't lose another child, couldn't bury another small body, couldn't survive that kind of loss again. Miss Clara, Jake's voice was weak. If I die, will you take care of Papa and Lily? You're not dying. But if I do... Jake McKenna, you listen to me. I didn't fight for 3 years, find silver, and win against Blackwood just to lose you to some fever. You're gonna live. You understand. You're going to grow up strong and smart and make your parents proud. Both of them. Mama Rachel and you. Clara's throat closed. Yes, both of us. That's good. Every kid should have 2 mamas watching over them. He drifted into restless sleep. Clara kept vigil through the night. Dawn came gray and cold. Jake's fever broke around noon. He opened his eyes clearer now and managed a weak smile. Still here. Where else would I be? Heaven's probably nice this time of year. Don't you dare joke about dying. You scared 10 years off my life. Sorry, Miss Clara. It's Mama Clara now. Lily decided. You should too. Jake's eyes filled. Really? Really, if you want. I want. Mama Clara. She gathered him carefully into her arms, mindful of his fragile state. Welcome back, son. We missed you. By evening, Jake was sitting up drinking broth color returning to his face. Doc Walsh checked him and pronounced him on the mend. You're a miracle worker, he told Clara. I'm just stubborn. That too. Daniel and Lily returned, both crying with relief. Lily climbed onto the bed, curled up next to her brother. Daniel pulled Clara into his arms and held her like he'd never let go. I thought I was so afraid. I know, me too. Don't ever do that again. Don't make me leave while you fight alone. I wasn't alone. I had Jake. They stayed like that, the 4 of them piled on Jake's bed, grateful and exhausted and alive. The fever passed through Copper Creek like a storm. 5 children died. 20 more fell sick but survived. Jake was one of the lucky ones. 2 weeks later, Doc Walsh declared the quarantine over. Life slowly returned to normal, and Clara and Daniel set a new wedding date. Sunday afternoon. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. The morning of the wedding, Clara woke to find Lily already up, her dress laid out, excitement radiating from her like heat. Is it time yet? Not yet, honey. Few more hours. I can't wait. I've never been to a wedding before. Never. Mama Rachel and Papa got married before I was born. This is my first one. Clara pulled her close. Then we'll make it special. Martha arrived with the dress, simple blue cotton, nothing fancy, but Clara loved it. Eleanor brought flowers from her garden. Other women came with food and good wishes. As Clara dressed, she thought about the last time she'd worn a wedding dress, marrying Thomas young and naive and full of dreams. She'd been 19, hadn't known what she was signing up for, the hard work, the loss, the grief that would nearly break her. She was 31 now, older, harder scarred by life, but also stronger, wiser, more sure of what she wanted. And what she wanted was standing at the church waiting for her. They walked to the church together. Clara, Jake, and Lily. No one to give her away because Clara didn't belong to anyone. She was choosing this freely. The church was full. The whole town had come. People who'd shunned her. People who'd doubted her. People who'd learned to respect her. All there to witness. Daniel stood at the altar in his best suit, his face full of wonder. When he saw Clara, his eyes filled with tears. Pastor Morrison began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Clara Whitmore and Daniel McKenna. Marriage is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage, commitment, and the willingness to fight for each other every single day. Clara met Daniel's eyes, saw her whole future there. Daniel, do you take Clara to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live? I do. With my whole heart, I do. Clara, do you take Daniel to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live? Clara thought about Thomas, about 3 babies who never breathed, about 3 years of crushing loneliness, about the moment Daniel's eyes opened after she'd pulled him from under that beam, about choosing love over fear. I do. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I pronounce you husband and wife. Daniel, you may kiss your bride. Daniel cupped Clara's face in his work-roughened hands and kissed her gently. The crowd cheered. Jake and Lily rushed forward, wrapping their arms around both of them. They were a family now, official and legal and real. The celebration moved to the town square. Someone produced a fiddle. People danced and ate and celebrated. Clara stood on the edge, watching, overwhelmed by the love surrounding her. Eleanor appeared at her elbow. You did it. You survived. I did more than survive. I'm living. Good. You've earned it, Clara McKenna. Mrs. Clara McKenna. The name still felt strange, but she thought she could get used to it. As the sun set, the guests began to leave. The newlyweds walked home with their children, their family. At the cabin door, Daniel swept Clara into his arms. What are you doing? Carrying my bride over the threshold. It's tradition. We've been living together for 2 weeks. Doesn't matter. Still doing it. He carried her inside while Jake and Lily laughed. Set her down, gently kissed her again. Welcome home, Mrs. McKenna. I've been home. This is just official now. Still, let me have my moment. They put the children to bed, then stood together in their cabin, their home, and looked at everything they'd built. Are you happy? Daniel asked. Terrified and happy. Is that normal? I think that's love, the real kind, the kind that's worth fighting for. Clara leaned against him. I thought I'd never feel this way again. After Thomas died after the babies, I thought that part of my life was over, that I'd used up my chance at happiness. Good thing life doesn't work on a one-chance limit. Good thing I had you to remind me. They stood in comfortable silence, watching moonlight spill through the windows. Outside, the mountain stood dark and eternal, its silver secrets safe beneath the stone. But Clara wasn't thinking about the silver anymore. Wasn't thinking about the past or the future, just this moment, this man, this family she'd somehow built from the scattered pieces of loss. Daniel. Yeah. Thank you, for not giving up on me, for seeing past the walls I built, for making me believe I could have this. You don't have to thank me for loving you. It's the easiest thing I've ever done. Clara turned in his arms, looked up at him. What happens now? Now we live. We work the mine. We raise the children. We grow old together. We build something that lasts. Sounds simple when you say it like that. The best things usually are. He was wrong, of course. Life was never simple. There would be challenges ahead, hard times, struggles and setbacks, and all the normal difficulties of building a life together. But they'd face it all together. And that made anything possible. Later, lying in bed beside her husband. She still couldn't believe it. Clara thought about the girl she'd been when she'd married Thomas. Young and hopeful and full of dreams. She thought about the woman she'd become. Scarred and strong and stubborn as hell. And she realized that both versions of herself had been necessary. The dreamer and the fighter. The hope and the strength. You needed both to survive out here. You needed to dream big enough to keep going, And you needed to be strong enough to fight for those dreams when the world tried to take them away. Clara had done both. Had dreamed of silver and fought like hell to find it. Had dreamed of love and been brave enough to reach for it again. And now, lying in the dark beside a man who loved her for exactly who she was, Clara finally understood what Thomas had been trying to tell her all those years ago. The treasure was never in the ground. It was in the courage to keep digging when everyone said stop. It was in the willingness to open your heart after it's been broken. It was in choosing to build something new instead of living in the ruins of what you'd lost. Silver had made her wealthy, but love had made her rich. And in the hard country of Colorado Territory, that was the only fortune that truly mattered. Outside, an owl called. The wind rustled through the pine trees. And in a small cabin on the side of a silver mountain, a woman who'd thought her life was over discovered it was just beginning. Clara Whitmore. McKenna closed her eyes and slept beside her husband, dreaming of futures and possibilities and all the beautiful, terrifying, wonderful things that came with choosing to love again. The mountain would still be there in the morning. The silver would still be waiting. The work would still need doing. But tonight, Clara had everything she needed. A husband who loved her, children who called her mama, a community that had finally learned to see her strength. She'd fought for 3 years to get here, had lost and found and lost again, had been broken and rebuilt and broken once more. But she'd never quit, never surrendered, never stopped believing that somewhere in the darkness, light was waiting. And she'd been right. The light had been waiting in a man's dark eyes, in children's laughter, in the courage to reach out even when you're terrified, in the willingness to try again when trying seems impossible. Clara had found her silver, but more importantly, she'd found her family, her purpose, her proof that second chances weren't just possible, they were worth every fight, every risk, every moment of terror. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new mountains to climb. But tonight, Clara Whitmore McKenna was simply grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful to be loved. Grateful to have found in the hardest place imaginable everything she'd stopped daring to hope for. And that gratitude, that bone-deep thankfulness for the life she'd fought so hard to build, was enough to make her brave enough to face whatever came next. Because she wasn't facing it alone anymore. She had Daniel. She had Jake and Lily. She had a town that had learned to see her as more than just a stubborn widow with foolish dreams. She had everything, and by God she was going to hold on to it with both hands and never let go. That was the real secret. Not just surviving, not just fighting, but learning when to hold on and when to let go, when to stand alone and when to accept help, when to protect your heart and when to risk it all on love. Clara had learned all of it the hard way, through loss and grief and 3 years of backbreaking work. But she'd learned, and now finally she could rest. The mountain would keep its silver. The mine would keep producing. Life would keep moving forward. And Clara would keep living, really living. Not just surviving, but thriving. Because that's what you did when you'd fought as hard as she had. You didn't just survive. You lived. Fully. Completely. With your whole heart. And if that meant being terrified sometimes, so be it. Love was worth the terror. Family was worth the risk. Life was worth the fight. Clara knew that now. Knew it bone deep. Knew it in a way she hadn't known anything since the day she'd buried her third baby and thought her heart would never heal. But hearts did heal. They scarred, yes. They changed. But they healed. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, they learned to love again. Even deeper than before. Even better. 3 months later, winter came to Copper Creek like a promise kept. Snow blanketed the mountain, turning everything clean and white. The mine was producing steadily now enough silver that Clara could hire 6 workers and still put money aside. Enough that the future didn't feel like a battle anymore. But success brought complications Clara hadn't anticipated. She was reviewing the monthly accounts when Daniel came in from the mine, his face troubled. We need to talk. Clara set down her pen. What's wrong? The O'Brien brothers want more money. Say they're doing the most dangerous work and should be paid accordingly. Are they right? Yes. But if we give them raises, the other workers will want the same. We can afford it, but it sets a precedent. Clara rubbed her temples. Business was easier when I was doing everything myself. No, it wasn't. It was killing you. Fair point. She looked at the ledgers. Give them the raises, and offer bonuses for safety. The fewer accidents we have, the more everyone earns. Make it in their interest to keep each other alive. Daniel smiled. You're getting good at this. At what? Being a boss. Thomas would be proud. The mention of Thomas still hurt sometimes, but the pain was softer now. Like an old injury that ached in cold weather but didn't stop you from living. That afternoon, Clara was teaching Lily arithmetic when Jake burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. Mama! Clara, Miss Hart says I'm reading at an 8th grade level. She says if I keep working this hard, I could go to college someday. Mama, Clara. He'd been calling her that for 2 months now, and it still made her chest tight with joy. That's wonderful, honey. Your father will be so proud. Both of them, Jake said quietly. Mama Rachel always wanted me to get an education. Said it was the only way to make something of yourself. She was right. Education's the one thing nobody can take from you. Jake hesitated. Mama Clara, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Mama Rachel would like you? Clara's hands stilled on Lily's arithmetic slate. I don't know, honey, but I hope so. I hope she'd see that I love you and Lily with my whole heart, that I'm not trying to replace her, just trying to add to what she started. I think she would like you, because you make Papa smile, and us. You make us all better. Clara pulled him into a hug. You make me better too. All of you. That evening brought news that changed everything. A telegram arrived from Denver. Eleanor Hayes read it, her face going pale, then rushed to the cabin. Samuel Blackwood's dead. Clara's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. What? Heart attack. 3 days ago. His business collapsed. He died penniless and alone. Daniel set down his tools. How do you feel about that? Clara. Clara thought about it. Tried to find satisfaction or revenge or anything resembling victory. Instead, she just felt empty. I feel sorry for him. He spent his whole life chasing wealth and died with nothing that mattered. No family, no love, just money that couldn't save him. That's gracious of you. It's not gracious. It's just true. Clara looked at Daniel at the children playing by the fire. We won. Not because we destroyed him, but because we built something he never understood how to have. That's the real victory. Eleanor left with promises to handle the legal aftermath. Clara sat by the fire, Daniel's hand in hers, and felt something inside her finally settle. The fight was over. Really over. She could stop looking over her shoulder. Stop waiting for the next attack. Stop living like survival was the best she could hope for. What are you thinking? Daniel asked. That I want more children. Our children. His hand tightened on hers. You're sure after everything? I'm terrified, but I want to try. Want to see what we can make together. Then we try. That night, they made love like they were planting seeds. Like they were building futures. And Clara let herself hope for the first time in years that maybe, just maybe, her body would cooperate this time. Winter deepened. The mine worked slower in the cold, but they still pulled enough silver to stay profitable. Jake and Lily thrived in school. Daniel's blacksmith business grew alongside the mining operation, and Clara discovered she was pregnant. She told Daniel first, her hands shaking as she placed his palm on her still flat stomach. It's early. Might not last. I've lost 3 before. This time is different. You can't know that. I can hope it. We can hope it together. They told the children that night. Lily was ecstatic, already planning how she'd teach the baby everything she knew. Jake was quieter, but Clara saw the hope in his eyes. The fear, too. He'd lost one mother already, was terrified of losing another. "I'm going to be fine," Clara told him. "I'm strong, I have help, and I'm not working myself to death this time. Promise. Promise." The months passed slowly. Clara's belly grew round. She cut back on mine work, letting Daniel and the crew handle the heavy labor. It went against every instinct, but she'd learned. Learned that accepting help wasn't weakness, that surviving meant knowing your limits. She was 5 months along when the complications started. Clara woke in the night to cramping. Sharp, familiar pain that made her stomach drop. "Daniel! Daniel, wake up!" He was up instantly. "What's wrong?" "Get Doc Walsh. Please, hurry." She saw the fear in his eyes. Saw him remember Rachel bleeding out in childbirth. Saw him imagine losing Clara the same way. "Go," she said. "I'll be fine. Just go." He ran. Clara lay in the dark, her hands pressed to her belly, praying to a God she wasn't sure was listening. "Please, please let this baby live. I've lost so much already. Please don't take this too." Doc Walsh arrived within the hour, examined her gently, his face grave. "You're bleeding. Not much, but enough to be concerning." "What does that mean?" "It means bed rest. Complete bed rest. No work, no walking, nothing but lying still, and praying this baby decides to stay put." "For how long?" "However long it takes. Could be days, could be months." "Clara, you push yourself, now you'll lose this child. Is that clear?" Crystal clear, and terrifying. The next 4 months were the hardest of Clara's life. Harder than working the mine alone. Harder than fighting Blackwood. Harder than anything except burying babies. Because lying still while life went on around her felt like dying by inches. Daniel managed the mine. Jake and Lily helped with cooking and cleaning. Friends brought meals and company. But Clara felt useless. Helpless. Like she was failing everyone by not being strong enough to carry a child without falling apart. "Stop that," Daniel said one afternoon, catching her crying. "Stop blaming yourself. I should be stronger." "You are strong. You're strong enough to do the hardest thing possible. To lie still when every instinct says move. To accept help when you want to do everything yourself. That's strength, Clara. Real strength." She wanted to believe him. Some days she could. Other days the fear was crushing. Jake brought her books from school. Read to her when she couldn't focus. Lily drew pictures of the baby, always smiling, always healthy. Daniel sat with her every night, his hand on her belly, feeling their child move. "Strong," he'd say. "This baby's strong like you." Or stubborn like me. Same thing. 7 months. 8. Clara's belly was huge now, the baby active and insistent. Doc Walsh checked her weekly, his face slowly relaxing from concerned to cautiously optimistic. "You might actually pull this off." "Don't jinx it." "I'm not. But Clara, you've made it further than before. That counts." 9 months. Clara was enormous and miserable, and more hopeful than she'd dared be in years. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this baby would live. Labor started on a Tuesday morning. Sharp, unmistakable contractions that made Clara gasp. "Daniel." He was at her side in seconds. "Is it time?" "It's time. Get Doc Walsh, and send the children to Martha's." "I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are. Get the doctor, then come back. I'll be fine for 10 minutes. He ran. Clara breathed through the contractions, focused on staying calm. This was it. The moment she'd been terrified of and hoping for simultaneously. Doc Walsh arrived. Daniel was right behind him. And then began the longest day of Clara's life. Labor was hard. Harder than she remembered. But Doc Walsh stayed calm. Daniel held her hand, and slowly, painfully, their baby made its way into the world. "One more push, Clara. Big one." She pushed with everything she had, felt something give, heard Doc Walsh make a satisfied sound, and then the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby crying. "It's a girl," Doc Walsh announced, holding up a red-faced, squalling infant. healthy and mad as hell. Clara was sobbing. Daniel was crying. Doc Walsh cleaned the baby quickly and placed her on Clara's chest. "Hello, little one," Clara whispered, touching the perfect tiny face. "We've been waiting for you." The baby opened her eyes, dark like Daniel's, curious and alert. Clara felt her heart crack open and reform around this tiny person. "She's perfect," Daniel breathed. "What should we name her?" They'd discussed names but never decided. Clara looked at her daughter, this miracle child who'd survived when 3 others hadn't. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope. Hope McKenna." Daniel kissed Clara's forehead. "Perfect." They brought Jake and Lily in an hour later. Both children were nervous, uncertain. Lily climbed onto the bed carefully. "She's so small." "You were this small once." "Really? Really? Want to hold her?" Clara showed Lily how to support the baby's head. The little girl sat very still, very careful, her face serious with concentration. "Hi, Hope. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything." Jake stood back watching. Clara held out her hand. "Come meet your sister, Jake." He approached slowly, touched Hope's tiny hand with one finger. The baby's fist closed around it instinctively. "She's holding my hand." Jake breathed wonder in his voice. "She knows you're her big brother, knows you'll protect her." "I will. I promise." That night, after everyone had gone, and the baby was sleeping in the cradle Daniel had built, Clara lay exhausted but happy. Daniel sat beside the bed watching her with such love it made her chest ache. "You did it," he said. "You carried her all the way. You kept her safe." "We did it. I couldn't have done this alone." "Good thing you didn't have to." Clara looked at the cradle, at the tiny, perfect miracle sleeping there. Thought about 3 babies who'd never breathed. About Thomas, who'd never know his dream came true. About Rachel, who'd never meet these children. "I wish they could see this," she said quietly. "Thomas and Rachel. Wish they could know how things turned out." Maybe they do. Maybe they're watching, proud of us for not giving up. I think the dead want us to live, really live, not just survive. And that's what we're doing. Clara reached for his hand. "I love you, Daniel McKenna." "I love you too, Clara McKenna. More than I ever thought I could love anyone after Rachel died." It's different, isn't it? Not better or worse, just different. Yeah, and that's okay. We don't have to compare. We just have to be grateful for what we have. The weeks passed in a blur of feedings and diapers and sleepless nights. Hope was a good baby, healthy and strong. Jake and Lily were devoted siblings. And Clara discovered that having help made all the difference. She wasn't doing this alone. When she was exhausted, Daniel took the night shift. When she was overwhelmed, Martha appeared with food. When she doubted herself, Doc Walsh reminded her how far she'd come. 3 months after Hope was born, Clara walked back down to the mine for the first time. Daniel tried to stop her, but she shook her head. "I need to see it. Need to know I can still do this." They descended together, reached the silver chamber. Clara touched the vein that had started everything. "Thomas would be so proud of you," Daniel said. "I'm proud of me. Is that allowed?" "Absolutely." "I did it, Daniel. I kept the mine, found the silver, built a family, survived everything they said would break me." "You did more than survive. You thrived." Clara turned to him. "We should expand, hire more workers, maybe buy the adjacent claim, build something really substantial." "You want to grow the operation?" "I want to build an empire, something we can pass to Jake and Lily and Hope, something that lasts." Daniel grinned. "There's the woman I married. I was wondering when she'd come back." She never left, just took a break to grow a human. Over the next year, they did exactly that. Expanded the mine, hired 12 workers, bought 2 adjacent claims. The Whitmore McKenna mine became one of the most productive in Colorado. Other mining families moved to Copper Creek. The town grew. A new school was built, a proper church. And through it all, Clara's reputation grew. The woman who wouldn't quit. The widow who'd survived everything. The businesswoman who was fair but firm. The mother who loved fiercely. The wife who'd chosen happiness over fear. On Hope's first birthday, they threw a party. The whole town came. Clara stood on her porch watching everyone, her workers, her friends, her family, and felt gratitude so deep it was almost painful. "Happy?" Daniel asked, appearing beside her with Hope on his hip. "So happy, it scares me sometimes." "Good scared or bad scared?" "Good scared. The kind that means you have something worth losing, something worth fighting for." Jake and Lily ran past, chasing other children, laughing, free, safe. Everything Clara had wanted for them. "Mama Clara," Lily called. "Come play." "In a minute, honey." Daniel shifted Hope to his other hip. "You know what I love most about you?" "What?" "That you never stopped fighting. Even when you had every reason to quit, you just kept going. Stubborn, you mean? Stubborn, brave, strong, all of it." He kissed her. "Thank you." "For what?" "For saving my life. For loving my children. For building this with me. For everything." Clara took Hope from him, held her daughter close. "You saved me too. You know that, right? I was dying slowly before you showed up. You and these kids reminded me why life was worth living. Then we saved each other. The best kind of rescue." They stood together watching the party, watching their life unfold. And Clara thought about the girl she'd been when she married Thomas. Young and naive and full of dreams. She thought about the woman she'd become after he died, hardened and alone and convinced she'd used up her chances at happiness. And she thought about who she was now, battle-scarred but whole, broken but healed, stronger for everything she'd survived. "Mama?" Hope reached up, touched Clara's face with chubby fingers. "Yes, baby girl." Hope just smiled. That pure, uncomplicated joy of a child who knows she's loved. And Clara felt it all click into place. All the loss, all the pain, all the fighting it had led here. To this moment, this family, this life worth living. The mountain still stood dark against the sunset. The silver still waited in its depths. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new mountains to climb. But Clara wasn't afraid anymore. She'd learned the secret that had eluded her for so long. Strength wasn't refusing help. It was knowing when to ask for it. Courage wasn't fearlessness. It was choosing to move forward despite the terror. Love wasn't a one-time gift. It was a choice you made every single day. And family was what you built from the scattered pieces of your broken heart. What you created when you were brave enough to try again. What you fought for with everything you had because losing it was unthinkable. Clara had found her silver. But more importantly, she'd found something worth more than any metal pulled from the earth. She'd found home. In Daniel's eyes. In children's laughter. In the simple act of sitting on a porch watching the sun set with people who loved you. That was the real treasure. And Clara Whitmore McKenna, widow miner, mother survivor, held it close and knew she'd never let go. "Come on," she said to Daniel. "Let's go join the party. Our family's waiting." "Our family," Daniel smiled. "I like the sound of that." "Me too, more than I ever thought I would." They walked down the porch steps together, into the chaos and joy and beautiful mess of a life fully lived. Clara carried Hope while Daniel gathered Jake and Lily. They stood together, this family built from tragedy and stubbornness and grace, and Clara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Complete, not perfect, never perfect, but complete. And in the end, that was all anyone needed. To be whole. To be loved. To be brave enough to keep fighting for the life you wanted, even when the world said it was impossible. Clara had done that. Had fought like hell and won. Not just silver, but everything that mattered. The party continued around them. Music played, children laughed, adults talked and danced and celebrated. And Clara McKenna stood in the center of it all, her husband beside her, her children safe and happy, and knew with bone-deep certainty that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for all along. Not wealth, not validation, not even survival. Just this: love and family, and the courage to choose joy even after unspeakable loss. That was the lesson the mountain had taught her. That was the wisdom earned through 3 years of back-breaking work and heartbreak. You didn't win by never falling. You won by getting back up every single time, by refusing to let loss define you, by being brave enough to reach for happiness even when you were terrified it would be ripped away. Clara had done that, had reached out with both hands and claimed the life she wanted, had fought every obstacle and refused to quit, had learned that the strongest thing you could do was admit you needed help. That love didn't make you weak, it made you invincible. She'd lost Thomas, lost 3 babies, lost 3 years to grief and loneliness. But she'd gained so much more. A husband who saw her strength and loved it. Children who called her mama. A community that respected her. A business that thrived. A future that stretched bright and possible before her. And most importantly, she'd gained herself back. The parts of her that grief had stolen. The hope that loss had dimmed. The faith that maybe good things were possible after all. That was worth every fight, every tear, every moment of doubt and fear. Because on the other side of all that pain was this, was everything. And Clara McKenna held it close, this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life she'd built from ruins, and knew she'd never take a single moment for granted. This was her silver, her treasure. Her proof that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was simply refuse to give up. The sun set behind the mountain, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The party continued. Life went on. And Clara stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by love, and knew with absolute certainty that she'd won. Not because she'd found silver, but because she'd found the courage to keep living when survival seemed impossible. To keep loving when loss seemed inevitable. To keep fighting when everyone said quit. That was the real victory. And Clara McKenna claimed it with both hands and her whole heart, knowing she'd earned every single second of the happiness she'd found. This was her life, hard-won and precious and worth every battle. And she was going to live it fully, completely, with no regrets and no holding back. Because that's what survivors did. They didn't just survive. They thrived. They built. They loved. They lived. And Clara Whitmore McKenna was done just surviving. She was finally beautifully, completely alive.